Hello everyone and welcome to my series on how to make your own World of Warcraft add-ons. I'm going to be teaching you everything from the basics all the way up to how to make timers and tracking abilities and even creating your own Blizzard styled artwork and pretty much everything that I know how to do, which is reflected in my own personal projects. I'm the creator of Mayron UI. If you don't know who I am, it doesn't really matter too much because I'm not too important. But what is important is that I know my fair share of tricks on how to do stuff in the Lua programming world. But that being said, I'm not a professional. I don't have a degree yet, I'm working on that. But I'm very excited to get started and hopefully you don't find me too irritating to listen to. I know I don't have the best of voices, but let's get started. Before we get started, I just wanted to point out that when I first got started with this, I bought a book which I recommend you getting if you're really passionate about creating add-ons and you want to learn a bit more than just following through with my guides. It's a book called Beginning Lura with World of Warcraft Add-ons, written by Paul Emmerich, and he was one of the lead programmers and developers of Deadly Boss mods. I know there's some other people that deserve credit as well, but I'm just throwing it out there that this book is really good for learning how to do the basics. Some of the stuff is a bit outdated, but most of it is still very relevant and good, so I can safely recommend this book to anyone. But yeah, okay, so what's the first thing we're going to learn, you might be asking? Well, the first thing is obviously how to actually make an add-on which is recognised by the World of Warcraft client. So let's get straight to that. Okay, so we're going to be creating add-ons, so we need to open up the World of Warcraft directory, and all the add-ons are stored in the interface, and then you've got add-ons, which makes obvious sense. All your add-ons go in here. I've got a buttons folder, which just ignore because you shouldn't have this. It's just an optional add-on which I've installed and it allows you to reskin stuff in game a lot more efficiently by just adding some files here. But yeah, you won't have buttons. So this is where you create all of your add-ons and all your files go into that add-on folder. So if you have just one add-on, you want just one folder. Sometimes you might have two add-on folders and they link together. You can actually make that happen. So that one folder of an add-on is dependent upon another. But let's just keep it simple. Let's make a new folder. We'll call it My UI, because for instance, I've got Mayron UI, and I think the easiest way to show you how to do add-ons is to follow the same sort of methods that I've done by creating your own UI in the same sort of style as my own. So, if I'm showing you how to do this, this is probably gonna decrease my own downloads of my own UI because people will start making their own UIs just as good as mine by the end of this. But oh well. I'm fine with that. So yeah, you go into My UI, then you want to create some files. The very first file that you should create is the TOC file, or the TOC file. It just contains all the generic basic information that sort of registers your add-on into the game. Ideally you should create the name of this file as the same name as the folder that you created for that add-on. So for our example, we'd create a TOC file and name it My UI. You don't have to, but it just makes sense to. It's just for convenience purposes really. You can even have many TOC files in the same folder if you liked, but then it would be registered as more than one add-on. So you might not have this though, you need a .toc. If it doesn't say, .txt when you create a new text document, you have to make sure that the file name extensions, you need to have this showing. In Windows 8 it's really easy, you just press View and then tick this. I think Mac computers and Linux, they have this showing automatically by default, which Windows really should do. But if you've got Windows 7, you might need to go into... It's such a long time since I've used Windows 7, but yeah, I think you go into View and then go into Folder Options or Folder Properties, and then it should be something like Show Extensions for Known File Types. And then you tick that and just, press Apply and then you should have it. But make sure that's ticked and that you can see this. The TOC file is basically what registers the add-on to World of Warcraft to the game client, so that way you can see it in the add-ons list. And as I said earlier, it stores generic information about the add-on. I mean things like the description of it, the title, and it basically just holds some really simple information, which you can even copy and paste from other add-ons, so I might just do that. I'm going to go into Mayron UI, go into my TOC file. This is something I really recommend doing as well. Let me just close all this. Yep. Some Java bullshit. So yeah, you need Notepad++. It's really simple to download. Let me just show you how to do that actually. Alright, here we go. I just had to make sure my bookmark bar was not showing all that porn, and not really, no, it's nothing like that. I just want to keep all my information secret and secure just to myself, so I've just got rid of all my bookmarks, alright. So Notepad++, and then you go on Notepad, home, you can go on download, but yeah. And then just press the download button, download it here, and then it'll go up there, which I shouldn't have done, but yeah, I can cancel it. Yeah, because I've already got it, alright. Yep, once you've done that and installed it, you should be able to open up files like the TOC file in Notepad++. So forget about the libraries, these are external libraries. I should explain that though. Basically, World of Warcraft, for making add-ons, there's one known library collection. There are other ones like Rock and other silly things, but the WoWAce one is the best, Ace. They provide you with all different abilities for your add-ons, such as in-game Blizzard sort of styled menus like you've seen in Mayron UI. It allows you to control databases better, events, register stuff, and it's very technical, it's more top-end stuff. So if we got time, I'll go through that once at the end of this series, but for now, you don't need it. So we're just going to copy and paste all of this into, you know, you can steal it from any other add-on and then just customize it to your own liking. It's just to make it a bit easier, that's all. Because the interface number, you have the version number, it's always changing and always getting updated per patches, so that's why I always copy and paste this, because then you don't have to manually type it in and make, you know, you're always going to get it right if you get it from an add-on which is already updated. You have the title. This is just some code here to make the looks of the, the add-on text that displays in the add-on list a different colour. This one's a closing. Let me just zoom in on this. But I'll just go through it because we're already here now. Might as well. So if you like, press Shift and then whatever this line is, and then as you put R, that just closes the color code. And the same goes with Lua. It uses the same sort of syntax. You can use it in TOC files as well, even though it's not Lua. But this is a color. It's probably, I think it's blue, light blue. You can look at color codes and learn how to do this online. I'll explain it a bit later on another point. But for now, we'll just remove that and get rid of this. Actually, just get rid of the whole thing and we'll call it My UI. It should be fine. Version. This is your own sort of information. It shows up in-game, but you can call a version number whatever the hell you want. You're the, developer. It's not concrete. Let's just call it 1, actually 0.8, because that usually means like beta, or a few other guys beta, or alpha, whatever. We can call it beta, whatever, master beta. It doesn't really matter, whatever you like. Yeah, this is more color coding bullshit. You can just get rid of that and put some notes, which is basically the description. My super secret add-on. Okay, author, that's myself, or yourself, because you're doing it. Email, forget that. It's not going to show up in game, neither is URL. I just like to keep it there for people that want to know how to contact me and other sorts of things. The optional depths attribute can be used to create a list of add-ons which you say to the program you want these to be loaded before your add-on is loaded. But it's only optional, so if these add-ons are uninstalled and missing, your add-on will still load. It just means that if it detects them, they need to be loaded before your own. There's also the opposite one called required depths, which is a requirement, so these add-ons have to be loaded before your own, and if they're missing, then your add-on won't even load. It's also worth noting that you can also use the keyword dependencies, which is exactly the same attribute as required depths. They work in the same way, so you can declare required add-ons to be loaded first using the required depths attribute or the dependencies as shown on the screen right now for you guys. So just pick the one that you want to use. There's also a few more special loading commands that you can actually do. You can use the load on demand attribute. Now the default is 0, but you can set this to 1, and if you have the load on demand set to 1, that means that the add-on won't load until you specify within another add-on that this add-on should load at a specific time in the game. So for instance, I have the setup data add-on, which works with the Mayron UI core add-on which I created, and it just means that when you're trying to install the UI, it loads the setup data because that's needed for that one specific time in the game. And you might as well have it disabled at all other times. You can't trust the user to know when to enable and disable it. It's something that your add-on should do. It also means that if you don't want this add-on loaded, but the user has enabled it anyway, which is completely pointless, then it won't actually load internally. Even though the user might think it's loaded, it's not, and it will only start loading once you decide it should be loaded. There's quite a few other tags, but they're not as important, and some things that you rarely need to use, like you have the load with attribute. This requires loading on demand to be 1 because it basically is a comma separated list of different add-ons that basically load with the add-on when this add-on is loaded in the game. So rather than having code that says you need to load all of these massive list of add-ons in your Lura files, you can just have them chaining, so you load one on demand, which also implies that others are loaded with it. Those are the only attributes that I feel like are needed to be talked about though, because those are the ones you're mainly going to be concerned with. So we don't need this at the moment. Default state is enabled, so if someone downloaded your add-ons and they forget to enable it, they might be really stupid and be like, hey, your add-on's not working. That actually happens a lot to me, and I would be like, have you turned on the add-on? So I always have this enabled just to avoid really silly things like that happening. We're not going to use any libraries at the moment, like I said earlier. Core, that's the name of the other file that you're about to create, so we'll just leave it as core. I had some XML templates being used in my UI, but we're not going to use them for now. Can't wait to show you guys that though, that's going to be very fun. Now we'll just rename this myui.lura, and it's Lura, it's not LUA, okay? People get really confused because of the thing I'm about to show you in a minute. If you name it like this, and it says right here, yeah, LUA, all in caps, but the actual language doesn't have it in capital letters. It's pronounced Lura, but yeah, if you mention this on the forum saying, hey, can anybody help me with the LUA and put all in caps, then usually the first thing a professional or someone who's used this language for a long time says, you know, complains and saying, oh god, you're using it wrong, and then you have to go through this awkward period where you're trying to get the name pronounced right before they even help you, so I thought I'd just include that. So that's all we need. Now, you're going to get the add-on showing up in-game saying you need to enable it or disable it. That's all covered because we have all the information here filled out correctly. That's all you really need. But obviously, if you open up this, it doesn't do anything. So let's just do something super simple so we can test that it works and make sure it's saved as well. Notepad++ comes up with red if it, not saved it properly. I could teach you a bit about Notepad++, but it's really easy to use, and for people that have used it already before, it might be a bit tedious. But I love this, you can actually pin stuff, you know, a line, and it actually says line numbers by default, unlike text pads, which you have to keep altering all the settings. The default settings on Notepad++ are very nice to use. They've just got everything you need. But I think if you have like loads and loads of lines of code, and you put a sort of a pin there, I think if you press F2, yep, it jumps to the pins. So you can save like bookmarks and then go to code. I find that very useful. But it doesn't have any like syntax error reports. You don't have to compile with Lura. No compiling's involved, you just write code and load up the game. And you can even reload the UI by typing, you know, /rl if you've got that. Maybe not, I think the default is reload UI. Only then do the changes apply. If you add texture files, files that contain graphical textures, into your add-on folder while you launch the game and the game is already up, you have to restart the game in order for the text files to, you know, sync and load properly. But for generic basic codes, you just have to reload the UI in-game, which we'll cover in a minute. So for line 1, we have the print statements. Now the print statement is the most basic of statements. You have this in most languages. I mean, like Java, you'd put system.out.println. But in Lura, it's very simple because you just have to mess with the print function, which is just one word. You don't have to worry about any object-oriented paths like system.out. blah blah blah. It's all really nicely laid out, and that's why I think Lura is a very nice language to learn for beginners to get you involved in the programming world. Most universities will teach you to use Python. Now Python is incredibly simple to use, but it's very similar to Lura. If you already know Lura, the odds are you won't struggle with Python, you can just jump in and start learning it. The only difference is that Lura's even easier in my opinion because you don't have to worry about indentations. You can just put code wherever you want. Even if all code was on just one line, it would look terrible, no one would want to work with you, but the code would still run. White spaces aren't treated as anything special. They're just completely ignored by the compiler or what's running the system. We'll just go with print hello there, and eventually we'll get it to print our character name, which I'm going to show you next. But these things here, semicolons, you have these in most languages, but in Lua it's completely optional. They don't actually do anything. It's just for good coding practice. You don't have to do it. Many authors don't do it because there's just no need, but it's just for convenience and your personal taste in programming. Many people go on from doing Java and C++ straight into Lua, and then because they're so used to putting that, they just think, I might as well just use it. And thankfully, the language doesn't throw up an argument if you try and, an exception if you try and do something like this. So we'll launch up the game now and we'll see what happens. Okay, so the next tip I'm going to give is I usually make a trial account, and the reason I do this is because I don't want to be hassled by all of my real ID friends while I'm trying to program. So what I do is I create a fake trial account, because you can get trial accounts where you can just play, free to play, and you don't have to pay anything for, and you can still program and do what you want. You just don't have access to some stuff like guilds. I don't think trials can join guilds or trading or something, some of that stuff. But for the purpose of this one and for UIs, I always use this. So yeah, play trial. This some nerd, that's my character. He looks really stupid, but disable all the other add-ons that I've got involved. Then we just want to enable, what was it called? My UI? Yep, there we go. So version number, the version attribute in the TOC file, it doesn't actually show up, which is why I usually include it in the notes instead. But version, the attribute for that, I use with more advanced stuff, which we're going to cover later. I'm just going to keep it simple. So we'll enable this and we'll log in, and because we put print hello there, it should say hello there instantly. There we go. So yeah, as you can see, it says hello there, and you might be wondering, well, this is a bit weird. Why is it showing at the top rather than at the bottom? It's because if you're using a print statement, it always launches the code first, and then it does events like player entering world. That's an event. And if you add code into an event, which we'll cover in another video, it will then say hello world at the end of all of this yellow information. There's also a few more nicer tricks you can do with printing to the default chat frame, but as again, we're not going to get time to cover all of that in just one video. So let's say now we want this print statement to actually print our character name. What you'll do is you'll do a hello, let's just change this. Hello. And then our character name should be next. You should have a space just here because otherwise it'll all be jumbled together. And then you use ... I'll explain that first. ... is this language's version of concatenation, which, if you've not done programming before, I'm going to treat you as if you've never done programming before, because most people who think, oh, I want to program, usually it's to do with something exciting like World of Warcraft add-ons. A lot of people out there just want to make add-ons and never messed around with any other programming environment. So concatenation basically means it gets a string, which is text like this in quotes. You can also have these quotation marks as well, which is probably the more desired choice, because then you can do things like this, and these are now part of the string. But if you wanted to this, then this would be out of the string, and then you'd get an error. So it's just if in case you wanted to include the double quotes or extra quotes inside of another quote. So you can be like hello, oh wait, what's a word that has, oh forget it. I'll just put it like this, and then you had like an S there for instance. You can do this, but if you did this instead, and you had a smaller quote inside of another smaller quote, it would cut off the string just here, which would again result in a compile error. So you should always use these double ones if you have any intentions of using single ones inside of it without having that problem. But for convenience sake, we'll just stick with the double one. Okay, but anyway, these things here, the concatenation, sort of concatenating operator, it moves and joins two strings together. So you can put hello there, and then basically it would register this as hello space there, and this stuff never gets printed at all. This just joins the two strings together. And the reason you have this is just so that you can put some sort of variable name, and then it would print whatever this is, and you can't obviously put the variable name in here because then it thinks it's a string. So it's just going to say hello variable name, the name of the variable, which isn't what you want, because this variable name might hold a number, and it, you know, like 30, 45 or something. So if you want to print your name, there's a bunch of methods or functions that Blizzard offer in their API. Now most environments, even Google, everyone has their own API, which is their system's predefined functions that other developers, third-party developers, like to use in order to interact with that system. The default language, like the default Lura language, only has so many of their own custom functions, like print. Print is their own function, and Blizzard did not make the print function, but Blizzard have made other functions to interact with their game, which the default Lura language has no needs to have. And you can view these on wowprogramming.com. I'll show you that, I'll put a link down in the description, or actually no, I can just show you. This one here, this is all of their widgets. Widgets are a bit more trickier, we'll talk about them later, but you can create frames and buttons and all sorts of scroll bars. Usually when you do stuff like this and mess around with the like player model, that's a lot more advanced, movie frame, you'd usually use XML. XML is very convenient and you can use templates. I think I've already said that. But it's so exciting to use and very fun. You just want to go into, you know, the home page, then go to references, then the API, complete API listing. These are all of the methods that you can possibly want and use. Like, a popular one is unit. That's the one we're going to be using. So unit name, get unit name, that's not right. Here we go. Unit name, I've just used the find tool for that. That's how I got there quickly. I'd recommend using that as Control F, in case you did not know. And then you go into unit name and it gives you a description, like the arguments it takes. And that's what it returns. It returns the name of the unit, which is yourself. You see, look, it's basically done it for me here. I don't really have to show you the tutorial anymore. Send chat message, but we're just going to use print for now, for convenience sake. That's a bit, you know, a little bit more complicated, but not much. You can research into this. Just research. You learn so much by just looking at the API. Your favourite friend when you're developing is the API, because no programmer is supposed to remember all of that API functions that you have available for. Most methods are named very well, so if you want to find something in particular, just use the find tool in Google Chrome or whichever browser and look for what you need. So this function here, it takes a unit, and what it means is a unit ID. So you click on there, and you got all the different IDs. I already know them off by heart, but you got like player, pets, vehicle. So we'll just get the player one, and it wants a string in there, so this is how you do it. Unit name, and then player. So this will automatically generate my unit name, which is in this case some nerd. And then it will generate the string some nerd and concatenate them together to spell out hello some nerd. So we'll test that out to prove I'm right. Reload. There we go. Hello some nerd. So you can do loads of things. I'm just assuming unit level is going to be 1, and then you can use the ID again. If this isn't 1, it's going to be a bit embarrassing, but there we go. Hello some nerd 1, because I didn't put a space in. If you want a space, which looks a lot neater, you just do this and then reload again. Yeah. We're dead at. There you go guys, there's your first really silly add-on which doesn't do anything in particular, but in the next episode I will show you how to do events driven programming, which is a lot more useful, and I'll actually start explaining stuff like variable names and all the stuff I probably should have done in this tutorial. But this one's been more about setting things up and getting add-ons actually in the game working, and all the special tips for programmers, such as having a trial account, having Notepad++, and that's all you need. People like to overcomplicate things by showing you how to make add-ons with really silly IDE programs, which is not necessary with Lura, it really isn't. If you get an add-on, look, I'll just show you something quickly. If you get an error like this, that's obviously a completely wrong piece of code. That'll generate a syntax error, so let's see what that looks like. This is the Lura error. You can get other Lura error reporting add-ons like Bugsack, and I actually do recommend Bugsack. I think it adds a bit more information and it stores them in a nicer place and handles it better. But for now we're just going to be using the Lura error Blizzard provides. So it says here, Lura, line 2 equals expected near dot. So in line 2 it actually gives you the line numbers. This is why you need Notepad++ rather than Notepad, because line numbers are going to be very key in developing. It'll save you a lot of time. So it's saying that we haven't got an equals because this is treated as a variable name and this is its value. So in order for this to make sense, you should have had this, but either way, it's just a load of rubbish. Okay, so thank you so much for putting up with me. Hopefully this has been an okay guide, and hopefully you're excited to see other stuff in future. If not, I'm sorry for wasting your time. And if you did enjoy this, then let me know your thoughts on it, because I do like interacting with the comments section. So until next time, this has been Mayron, bye for now.